going to go to Blake here. Blake is first up. Are you there, Blake?
Yeah, how's it going, Bart?
Pretty good, pretty good. Blake, you got a hand for us?
Yeah, so this was at the Desert Diamond in Phoenix, Arizona.
All right. So, Desert Diamond in Phoenix, Arizona. That's a place I am not really familiar with. I got to be honest with you.
Yeah, it opened up in like the last 3 or 4 years, so
Okay.
taking some of the action away from Talking Stick.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, Talking Stick, they had that like little cap for a while, but then I heard that it sort of it changed to True No Limit, didn't it, recently?
Correct. Same with Desert Diamond. Yep.
Okay. Okay, cool. All right. So 3-5 match the stack here, right?
Correct. Three
Okay.
five match stack with a $10 straddle this hand.
Okay. So with a $10 straddle. Okay.
And so it folds to me in the hijack. I have ace king of diamonds,
Okay.
and I raise to 30. The small blind calls, and then villain who's in the straddle three bets to 130.
So you make it 30, small blind calls, and the villain in the straddle makes it 130. Well, I mean, that's a spot where he could obviously be squeezing, right? Because he's got some dead money out there. It's kind of a little bit more of a polar spot if it was just heads up.
And so
And
this villain in particular, I've seen squeeze four way with ace seven offsuit. So I think it's a pretty light three bet generally.
well, I mean, you got ace king suited, right? That's one of the hands that
Yeah.
you're supposed to almost always put in the extra bet balanced with aces. Plus, you got another guy in there, and you opened in somewhat late position. Yeah, I'm all for four betting here for sure.
Yep. So yeah, I four bet to 325 and villain calls.
So small blind folds, I assume.
Correct. Yep. Small blind folds. And I'll add this was 2100 effective.
2100 effective. So hero goes and makes it 325 as a four bet. Small blind folds, and we are off to a pot that is heads up, and the pot's probably somewhere just under 700.
Yep. 680.
Okay.
And then flop comes down king of spades, nine of diamonds, five of diamonds.
King of spades, nine of diamonds, five of diamonds. So you flop top pair, right?
Top pair with the flush draw. So kind of the best flop you can get in a four bet pot.
Sure, pretty good flop for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, and so villain checks, and then I bet 150.
Okay.
Small size, but this is, I generally am going just between 20 and 25% on most boards and four bet pots.
I mean,
Although we are deeper, so I maybe should have sized up there.
so you flop top pair in the nut flush draw too, right?
Correct.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's a monster flop, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got the whole board covered. So if there ever was a time to like kind of bet small, you know, this might be one of those times, right? Maybe if you had aces with no diamonds or something like that, or not ace king. But I mean, yeah, there's obviously no reason to have to go like super big here for sure.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, and I wanted to leave myself room for turn and river play as well, just in these four bet pots.
okay.
But then villain ends up check raising me to 360.
Wow. Check raises to 360. And you, of course, block pocket kings, right?
Block pocket kings and then have the ace of diamonds as well.
Right. I mean, you've got the nut flush. I mean, you have the nut flush draw here too. I mean, I suppose there could be some Broadway types of flush draws like Jack 10 of diamonds, Queen Jack of diamonds. I mean, I think that the play here is definitely to call. I mean, especially with this type of board coverage that you have. I mean, if you make the call here, you guys have put in 720 on the flop. It's going to be like, 1400, and you guys are going to have right around a pot size bet left across two streets, right?
Yep,
Okay.
correct.
Yep.
And yeah, I figured if I thought about raising, but if I raise, I'm usually only getting called by worse. I mean, getting called by better, excuse me. And this villain in particular, he check raises me more than he calls. He check raises more than any player I've ever played against, both live and online. So obviously wanted to keep him in with all of his bluffs.
Well, I don't know how many bluffs he has, but someone in the live chat actually brings up a good point where you could actually just free roll this guy for a stack. If he's willing to check raise, get it in here with ace king, you have a free roll on him. I mean, how much check raising on a king high board do you see in a four bet pot as a bluff, especially when you have the diamonds?
Yeah. Yeah, so a very rare spot. But most villains I wouldn't think are too capable of finding bluffs, but this villain definitely think can find
I get
plenty of bluffs here.
I gotta tell you, Blake, actually, the more I think about this, because it's such an extreme type of scenario here, I mean, you're not really getting away from it anyways. And, if he's got 9-9, but I kind of like what this guy here said too now, where I kind of like three betting. I don't buy that there's a high frequency of a check raise here in a four bet pot that he's going to continue to bluff you like when you call here. I kind of want to just get it in a free roll. I mean, it's a four bet pot and it's a straddle pot, and you started with what 2100, so you're not super deep. It's already bloated up. I actually kind of like that play, but sounds to me like you just called.
So are you three bet jamming or three betting just to say seven, 800?
Well, I mean, if you can raise to an amount where there appears to be fold equity, which is usually going to be less than say like 25%, maybe even less than your effective stack because of the dead money out there, then you could make a case for doing that. But the pot is already so bloated up, I'm not sure if you could do that, because once you go to like 700-800, it's like so if you're going to make it where you're always going to commit yourself, then it probably looks more bluffy by just jamming. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Yeah.
So it sounds to me like you
Yeah.
called.
But yep, I just called.
Okay.
And so pot is 1400 into the turn,
Yep.
which is the seven of hearts.
So the turn is the seven of hearts. So that's a pretty big brick, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Very bricky. And without thinking too much, Villain ends up just jamming for 1500.
So villain jams for 1500, which is just over a pot size bet. I sort of go back to what we said before, though. Can he have ace king here, though?
I I was talking to my buddy. He thought he maybe has aces, but I think both ace king would make more sense than aces, just blocking kings. But it seems really ambitious to go for the check raise and then the jam on the turn by any villain. Um,
It wouldn't surprise me, though. I mean, again, not off the cuff, but with these stack sizes, like if you plug this into a GTO solution type of thing here, once you get to the flop with this number of stack to pot ratios, I actually see sometimes these things shoveling money. And I'm not saying this guy's playing like this, but I mean, to get back to it, wouldn't be shocking, but to get back to your point, if we think he's got slivers of ace king here and you're blocking pocket kings, I mean, I think this is a square call. This is much, much different than a different scenario where in a single raise pot, someone gets check raised and faces like a huge jam on the turn, and now you're really kind of looking at a dry flush draw with what the guy's representing. But the ranges here should be much, much more condensed and compressed. So whether or not you're gonna three bet jam the flop or not, I don't care if he uses all in sizing here, whatever. I mean, so say he used like 500 instead of like 1500, like 500 into what was 1400. I mean, even then, at that point, you still might jam to try to free roll ace king. It's probably pretty close. If he uses any more than that, right?
yep. Yeah. And so I did run this in Pio just out of curiosity, and it actually has no jams on the turn, only small sizing. But I find that pretty common in these four bet pots is the small sizes. So I was expecting more of a 500. And when he did jam, it made me think that he doesn't. It's hard to come up with bluffs besides with some of these broadways there. But honestly, I didn't put him on ace king either. But now that you bring that up, that is a viable hand that I could be up against.
I mean, that's why I would want to be shoveling money in here. I mean, that would be the
Yeah.
primary reason why I would not think about folding, for the same reasons why I would think about three betting the flop. So what ended up happening?
So I did end up calling. I tanked for a while, but then just figured like if he does have a bluff, even one combo of a bluff, then I have to be calling there.
Sure.
So I called Rivers Queen of Spades, and then he tables 9-9.
Well, reload.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of, I don't know. I mean, again, this is much, much different from a situation where this is like a single raise pot and the ranges are not all that really, really condensed. This is a four bet pot with ace king of diamonds and you flop top pair and a flush draw. you block top pocket kings. You don't even know if how many of the combos of nines that he has. I just feel like ace king is there as well. And if he was playing like aces tricky or something like that, I mean, you have some equity. You got to put that into a range, but I just think that anyone says that this is a fold in a 4-bet pot is smoking some ganja. But
All right, that's good to know. I didn't
yeah.
completely punt it off.
Now, thanks for the call, Blake. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.